give it a quick second for people to log in and be ready to hear us. Welcome everyone. My name is Chris Aviles. I am the Senior Program Manager here at TheDream.Us, focusing on scholar and partner college supports. Unfortunately, my colleague Nicole Wesley will be unable to join us this evening, so it is on me to welcome you to our Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneur Speaker Series. This is our last session for this series this year. So thank you for joining us. Before we go into the session and meet our amazing panelists, a few things. Even though we can't see your faces, we love to hear who is in the room. We want to hear your names, what majors you're in, what colleges you're coming from. So please feel free to put that into the chat. No pressure, but it'd be great to see where all our scholars are coming from across the country. So you can feel free to put that into the chat. Also, if you are looking to make this a networking opportunity, you might want to put in your LinkedIn URL link in the chat as well, wink, wink, so that others can click on that and connect with you and again, begin to build your networks. As we've been running these sessions, we have had amazing and thoughtful questions from all of our scholars requesting additional information from our panelists. We have allotted times at the end of the session, at the end of the discussion, for all of our panelists to be able to answer your amazing questions. So feel free throughout the session to use the Q&A section to place your questions. Please try to keep those in the Q&A session so that we can organize them well and keep them away from the general chat that's going on, so that our moderator at the end of the session can easily identify your questions and make sure that we don't miss any for the panelists to be able to address at the end of the session. This session will be recorded and posted on our TheDream.Us YouTube channel. Another thing to note is all of the information provided by our panelists and through the chat is for educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as legal advice. We also want you guys to share that we have amazing information on obtaining ITINs on our website. So if you go to www.thedream.us/ITIN, there is a full guide on how you can apply for an ITIN number or any other information that you may be wanting to ask, frequently asked questions regarding ITINs. All of that information is on our website. Again, my colleague Nicole Wesley has done an amazing job at putting this guide together so that it can streamline the process and you being able to get all the information you need to know about obtaining an ITIN. You will be hearing from our panelists who have done independent contract work and entrepreneurship that you will need either a social security number or an ITIN number. You do not need both. So this is great information to have. Also on this webpage, you will be able to find another link for the Immigrants Rising webpage on obtaining ITINs that has even more information. And finally, this is the last session for our Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneurs series. It is specifically focused on science and technology. So you'll be hearing from professionals in these fields who are amazing and we'll be sharing great information for you. As noted, this session and all of the sessions that we've done for this series throughout this time will be on our TheDream.Us playlist. Right now, there's only one video on that playlist. Nicole has assured me that by the end of next week, all of the videos will be uploaded, and I will be putting in the link for that playlist of videos in the chat while we go through the presentation and the session so that you all have that information. And that's it. I won't bother you anymore. I will hand this off to Rocio, who is our moderator and will be working through the rest of this session.
Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everyone to our last Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneur series. I have been super excited. Me and Danae, who is my colleague and has been supporting through this work, we're very excited to have been able to moderate some of these panel sessions. And it's been an honor to partner with TheDream.Us and to have so many of you join, submit your questions, your comments, and we're excited for another amazing panel session. As some of you might know, my name is Rocio Preciado, and if this is your first time joining one of our Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneur panel sessions, welcome. My name is Rocio Preciado, and I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. I came to the United States at the age of 9, and I came along with my mom and my dad and my younger sister. And I was formerly undocumented, and I have shared before that there are two things that my parents shared with me when I was here in the United States. One of them was do not share your immigration status with anyone. And second, your only responsibility is to do well in school. And that's because I did not have work authorization and I did not have the opportunity to be able to work in the United States. And so I took my parents' advice very seriously. I did really well in school and I got accepted to UC Santa Cruz here in California. And graduating from UC Santa Cruz, I did not have work authorization. And I began to wonder what are going to be the options available for me independent of my immigration status. And one of the biggest questions for me was it all worth it? I was able to access resources and connections, and I actually learned about entrepreneurship options, independent contracting. And over the last 15, 17 years, Immigrants Rising has been one of those resources that I was able to tap into and access to learn that I was in fact able to become an independent contractor when I graduated from UC Santa Cruz. I personally never saw myself as an entrepreneur. And some of you might be wondering if entrepreneurship is for you. I ended up working at the flea market. I gave entrepreneurship a try. And now I can say that entrepreneurship is one of those things that was always in me and was always in my family's blood. And I really hope that today you get to explore and really dive into and think about what is your entrepreneurial what has been your entrepreneurial journey if you've had one, and for you to begin to think of yourself as the skills that you might be able to bring in within the entrepreneurial world. And we have an amazing group of panelists who can speak not just from what they know, but from the things that they've been able to walk through and experience in their own journey with entrepreneurship. And so very excited to have this amazing group of panelists. And I'm going to go ahead and start and share a little bit more about who is in this virtual space. So we do have Sava Nafis. Sava is a dreamer, scientist, activist, entrepreneur, and lifelong student. Sava was born in Pakistan, and she moved to Fort Worth, Texas at the age of 11. Her family's immigration journey has been documented in an award-winning PBS documentary, Dream With Me. So check it out, folks. She's passionate about movement building, finding tangible ways such as entrepreneurship to help undocumented youth through organizations such as Immigrants Rising and the representation of women and students from underrepresented backgrounds in STEM. She holds a bachelor's and master's degree in mathematics and a PhD in mathematical biology from Texas Tech University. She's a data scientist in San Francisco working at the intersection of infectious disease and computerization biology. She's proud to serve as a mentor to undocumented students aspiring to pursue their dreams, as a community leader fighting for immigration reform, and as a board member of the National Korean American Service and Education Consortium and the Center for Asian Pacific American Women. Welcome, Sava. So great to have you here. We also have Chris Mercado, founder and CEO of Grant Answers. Chris Mercado, him is founder and CEO of Grant Answers, a data strategy and product consulting firm for social impact. Through Grant Answers, Chris has created processes and content to train over 650 emerging diverse technologists for tech careers. He has also developed systems to help over 250 low-income first-generation students ascend to college and earned $2 million in scholarships and grants. Trusted by the likes of WSJ, NBC, Tech for America, and U.S. Chamber of Commerce for features, keynotes, and panelists, Chris covers immigration, workforce development, education, entrepreneurship, and tech, diversity, inclusion. He has a BA in psychology, and at the age of 21, he was awarded the Magnet Fellowship as a top PhD candidate in criminal justice from the City University of New York, later leaving with a master's debt-free. Welcome, Chris. Great to have you here. And we also have Valeria Avila, who is founder and owner of Aprumo Designs. Valeria Avila Guerrero immigrated at the age of 16 from Mexico and quickly had to adapt to a new culture, language, and education system as an undocumented student. She obtained a full ride scholarship to Santa Clara University to pursue mechanical engineering and a master's in robotics and mechatronics. She then found herself struggling to find employment due to not qualifying for DACA. In pursuit of finding alternatives for undocumented STEM professionals to practice their field via entrepreneurship, she started Aprumo Design, an engineering consulting company with an emphasis on mechanical design and automation. Her biggest client is automating the recycling industry. Now she's in the process of hiring an intern and helping her mom continue her college education. Welcome, Valeria, and welcome all of you. We're so grateful to have you all here. Now, you are all navigating the entrepreneurial journey. And the very first question that I have for you all is, what was your very first experience or encounter with entrepreneurship? And we can have Saba go first.
Yeah, this is always such a good question because it's really hard to remember like the exact first moment. But I do very, very distinctly remember hearing the word entrepreneurship and having it like defined for me when I was in 10th grade. I was part of this leadership program called Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership growing up in Texas. Through my high school, a student is selected to go to this leadership program as a sophomore. And I was around these amazing young people. And we had all these different sessions that taught us about, mentorship and then entrepreneurship. And I was like, what is this word? Anyway, so I was like very amazed to hear that like that is actually a term like that signifies what it's like to just work for yourself, create your own possibilities, and pursue your dreams via your business or your ideas. So that's kind of when it was introduced to me. So I will never forget that. And then of course it's played out in various ways in my own life since then.
Thank you, Saba. And I can totally resonate with, if you really go back to the very, very, very first time, it's like hard to even remember when to point. Thank you, Saba. We'll have Chris share.
So my first formal experience, by the way, please excuse my voice. I'm very sick. But my first formal experience was back in 2013. I just got fed up with undocumented life. And part of that was I was like contributing to an after school program, but I wasn't getting paid. So essentially that was like wage theft. And then just the living situation and not being eligible for DACA. All of those things combined, I was like, forget it. Let's just form a business based on something that I was good at, which was kind of like helping folks like get to college and get scholarships. 2013, July 24th. So July 24th, 2013, I officially formed Grand Answers, and then we pivoted to more of a data strategy and product consulting firm over the years. But that would be my first formal experience, and it's the one that it's the business I still have now. Uh, what I will say though is my first informal experience of entrepreneurship is as a second grader. I lived in an attic, um, but in the basement of that house there was a pool table. So I would bring friends over and we'd play for quarters. So me hustling my older friends, that would be my first unofficial experience with entrepreneurship.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing. Valeria.
So remind me to not play with Chris Pool because I know what I'm gonna get. So the very first experience was probably I was just talking about this with my family actually in third grade. My mom didn't give us any money because she didn't want us to buy the chips at school, right? Like the monjitas, the nuns at school will sell chips and just like junk food, and she will never give us money for that. But I was in my friends had money, and so I started, and I was pretty good at drawing the Powerpuff Girls. So one night I drew him up and I cut him out and I sold them for 5 pesos each, and they bought it. And so there was a market. I drew them up and then I made money, and that turned into making bracelets, selling candy. And so I was always selling something at school. You needed something at school, I probably sold it. So I was your candy dealer at school.
It's amazing. So cool to hear. Rocio, I want to just add, this reminded me, sorry, like there's like ideas are coming as my friends here are speaking. Similar to Chris and Valeria and yourself, like, growing up undocumented in Texas, like I of course didn't have any money and my parents didn't either, but I was part of a lot of different extracurricular things like playing tennis as an athlete, still am, playing piano, voice, music, but all those things require money because you have to get lessons and you need to improve. And then I was playing at a level where, I wasn't a great level, but I was just improving. And then I had to get shoes every few months, and it's all expensive. And lessons are like sometimes 60 an hour. And that was back in the day, right? So I was like, how am I going to make money to pay for all this? And the way I did that is tutoring. And I know many people resonate with that. Is like I tutored the heck out of all the community friends, aunties and their kids who learned that I was good in math and science and other things. They were like, please teach our kids. So that was my like hustle, was always like tutoring nonstop, and even teaching piano lessons and things. So I have a ledger to this day that has like, because I didn't have a bank account or anything to store my money. So I would have like a actual like handwritten ledger, the money in, money out, and then how much to pay for such things. And so, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, so it's a docu hustle, right?
And it's beautiful to hear that there's this informal way of entrepreneurship that sometimes it takes time to be able to recognize that, yes, it is a hustle, and it is something that you're doing to be able to bring in some sort of income, financial resources into your life. And so it's beautiful to be able to see how you were each able to identify and share what you're good at and what your skills are. Now, I'm very curious to learn about your business and the scope of your business. I've had some informal conversations with all of you, and I've actually had a glimpse of kind of like what it is that you do, but I would love for people to hear, what is the scope of the work that you do, and what was that journey like to get to the business that you have now? And we can have Valeria share.
Yeah, thanks, Rocio. So currently what I do, it's funny because it's not like I chose the business. It kind of was like whatever there was a need, I jumped into it, and I was I was not strategic or intentional about this, but I just happened to be major in a very broad field, which is mechanical engineering. And that happened, and that kind of covers hardware and electrical. And I did a little bit of everything in school. So that gave me a huge advantage to be able to jump into an opportunity. And like that hunger that I was like, please pay me, I'll do anything. And so right now I do robotics integration, system integration, which means so the current client that I have that is the biggest one, they do a robotics in the recycling industry. And so what I do is I help connect their machine learning computer vision system to a robot arm that separates trash depending on what the customer wants, right? So we go to recycling facilities, we mount a robot arm, and then we have a camera that is detecting the different recyclables. And depending on what the machine learning is learning, and it will tell the robot, okay, I want plastic over here, I want cardboard over here. And so my role is to connect the hardware, make sure it works, make sure the robots don't fail. And because I did a master's in robotics, it kind of gives me that foundation. And so that's why it worked. But I didn't start doing robotics from the beginning. I think it's very important that I say this because I think a lot of us, and I'm speaking for my own experience, we think that we have to have the business model from the beginning and it has to be something I'm passionate about. But I just had such a need. And I knew that I had the foundation skill set that I was like, whatever, whatever that I can apply my skill sets, I'll get into. And in the beginning, I started doing mechanical design because I did mechanical engineering. And what that meant is I used to work so to backtrack a little on how I ended up here, when I was a fellow in Immigrants Rising, I happened to find this small machine shop, and the owner had posted a job in my school or something like that, and they wanted an estimator. And I thought, machine shop, machines, pretty close to mechanical engineering, I'm in. And I figured whatever, they'll let me use a little bit of CAD, which is the computer aid design. And so yeah, little by little, learn from the welders, the machinists, they will teach me. And because I was an estimator, it taught me a invaluable skill set, which is learning how much things cost. And that's something that you don't learn in engineering school. And so that was really helpful because I was intaking designs from Tesla engineers, BAE systems, and small startups, and even the Ring company came to that machine shop to get the prototype done. So I got to meet the founder, and he will talk to me about the design process. So it was amazing, but I was not an engineer intern by any means, right? So I was just really hungry. And little by little, I made those connections, and I happened to meet my current client. And so I made them some simple design, mechanical design, a little drawing so that the machinists could get it done. And what happens is that I ended up leaving that job. I did my master's, and the CEO of that startup, Everest Labs, remembered me, texted me on a Friday and said, "Hey, are you looking for work?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." He said, "Okay, let's talk." And we in a phone call, and on Monday I started work. Just because it's a startup, a small company, they needed the help, I wanted work. And so I think that preparedness, meeting opportunity is what really got me to get there. And that hunger, like being willing to do whatever is needed. So I started working with them while I was in school, while I was doing all kinds of things, mechanical design. And I got the prototype out and then start hiring more people. And as that company started growing, the needs changed, and I was prepared to jump into robotics. So that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. Now I don't touch any mechanical design or machine design, but because I have the knowledge of those products here in this company, I'm very valuable to them. So I still get a lot of work from them. So anyway, that's how I ended up with where I'm at. I think in a nutshell, Rocio, it started with being willing to take whatever opportunity I found, being willing to learn. I work long hours and connecting, right? Making those connections. And so, and yes, you're correct, Jesus. They have an RGB camera. So anyway, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Valeria. You were clear. You're speaking some things that I personally don't understand in terms of the technicalities of it. And there are some things that can totally resonate. And I think this is the exciting part about this panel, to be able to expose other people to some of these exciting things and continue to spark the curiosity in things that maybe folks haven't learned about or heard of So thank you so much for sharing, and you are doing amazing and incredible work.
I hope so.
Chris.
So I think I'll start with the broad areas where my company plays in. So one is technical workforce development. So that's literally helping technologists get jobs, and also indirectly diversifying what technology looks like. And then the other space is a little bit broader, which is social impact. And and orgs like TheDream.Us and Immigrants Rising, they're like the nature of the work is to create social impact. So now that you understand like the two biggest areas my company plays in, although it's not the only areas we can play in, but those are the two biggest ones. Then I'll bring you back to the description of the company, which is data, product, and strategy consulting. So, for example, we'll try to make sense of the data of an organization, and they might have to report to funders, right? So I'll give an example in the chat. So one of the clients I have, which we've had since literally their beginning, right? So we started working with them when they had a budget that was 6 figures. Now their operating budget is in the 7 figures. Actually, no, might be in the 8 figures now, right? So in working through their data, like this is outcomes data related to the kinds of jobs that their graduates have gotten. It's like a boot camp. So that's one example. And then when I move into product, I have a couple of examples. So if you have ever visited the new list of scholarships and fellowships on Immigrants Rising, I initially led the charge to shifting from like a PDF to something that's a little bit more accessible via mobile devices. So that list, I would put in a category of some of the product consulting that we've done. And at the same time, we've had other work with Immigrants Rising that has contributed to its Spark Entrepreneurship platform, right? So that would also be on the product side, and I served as like a project manager for that endeavor, and ultimately it helped contribute to what's the name of it, Horacio? What's the name of the grant from California? The Sea Grant? Yeah, California Sea Grant, right? So it's a pipeline for that, and it's empowering immigrant entrepreneurs to access that funding through the learning from that platform. And then when I think about the strategic nature of like the consulting, so for example, with the first venture that I put in the chat, we've helped pilot their programs outside of its headquarters in New York. So now, when we piloted in LA in 2019, we wanted to do a good job and we wanted to collect the data and find out if this expansion strategy could hold. And now it has a permanent office in Los Angeles, right? It also has a footprint in Atlanta now and Newark, New Jersey. So I'm definitely not taking all the credit for that, right? And clearly my business's model is a business to business model. We don't really deal with individuals, but our work does impact, has impacted thousands of individuals across the country.
Thank you, Chris. And it's beautiful to us to be able to see and really get a sense of what an end product can look like when it comes to thinking about entrepreneurship and what it is that you're contribute in the role that you're playing in some of these projects for these bigger organizations and businesses. Saba.
Yeah, I mean, y'all are just amazing, my heroes as well. So I'm really, really proud of you, Valeria, for sure. Just seeing you grow and like do amazing things. You always have, but it's like just so amazing to watch you fly. And then Chris, I've had many chances to, and we have worked together so much, but we got to get back on that data work that we talked about. So yeah, on my end, so I have a sort of an interesting entrepreneurship background. So in college and graduate school, I was really involved with entrepreneurship and innovation, and really got involved with the student entrepreneurship ecosystem. And perhaps this is very relevant to y'all because all of y'all are students. So what I really was passionate about is getting my campus leadership and administration and students all on board to pursue entrepreneurial activities together, like creating a collaborating space where students could come together and work on their startups, and helping lead programs like and being part of programs like 3-Day Startup, which is based out of Austin, where students would get training on how to build your business in 3 days, literally. And it's just so many amazing things I got to be part of. And part of that was me trying out a couple of different things, didn't work. And then eventually I started this social impact startup that was called Pada, which is a Tibetan word. And it was born out of my team and I doing a competition hosted by the University of Rochester many, many years ago. It was a business plan pitch competition where our goal was to help the people of Tibet that are refugees in India and Nepal be able to find a sustainable way to live. It just basically create ideas for them. And so we had our startup related to that. And our idea was basically helping them come up with their artisan craft in a way where they could really make it scalable and be able to market it to the Western world. And so that's kind of the problem we were trying to tackle. And so that startup is kind of like after COVID, it just kind of had a big downfall. And right now I'm in the midst of pivoting and creating something different out of it, and also continuing to have that social impact part in my mind. But ultimately, as I've continued my PhD and my graduate work and then graduated, I have been in the science and technology area, as you know, in the biotech field, because my background is in mathematical biology and computational biology. And so part of that is that I've gotten to be part of a couple of startups that have come out of this biotech, and it actually involves science, medicine, biology. So there's a couple of stealth startups and machine learning that I've been involved with, where I'm, right now just like doing the consulting part of it, where we are thinking about what the product is going to be, how is the product going to solve a problem that we have identified. And it's really, really cool to be at like the very initial stages of a startup that hopefully will continue to grow and do really well. There's downsides and pros to that. So I'm sure later on we will talk more about like the challenges and things too. And then separately as well, besides being a consultant with these stealth startups in the biotech area, separately myself, I've been doing actually independent contracting for most of this year after I left my previous job. And I've had such a great time like being kind of in charge of my own work, which is what happens when you work for yourself, right? And I've been doing bioinformatics and data science consulting for a large molecular diagnostics company here in the Bay Area. And it's been really cool being able to provide some much like Valeria, like having certain background that allows you to fill a niche where some companies don't have that filled in. So you see that opportunity, or it kind of lands in your lap, much like you, Alia. It's kind of happened to me as well. And so that's actually what I'm actively doing right now. And then potentially going to start doing that with another company that's won its Series A just recently. And so, yeah, a lot of like, once you're kind of in this, I guess, field or area, you end up making, again, lots of connections. So you have to be open to that, have to be open to networking, and have to be, just having a very keen eye looking out for the gaps where you see that there's a gap and you are able to fill it. I think that's one of the big lessons that I think we have all learned and actually lived. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers some of that main question about my my entrepreneurship and startup journey.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing. And there's one thing that folks were kind of touching on, and that is that you've all shared having different clients, working on many different projects. Some of you have continued through your education of getting your master's, your PhD. And one of the things that you mentioned, Saba, is that you're technically working for yourself, sometimes by yourself, and you had to keep yourself accountable to these projects, meeting certain deadlines and fulfilling on certain projects. How do you, one, manage your time? And how have you been able to build the discipline to keep yourself accountable to these agreements? And if you can maybe share some of the tips or the things that you've done over the years to develop that, the ability to do that. And we'll start with Chris.
So there's an approach that I had that I explained on Wednesday to the career community. And for me, I care much less about goals. I care way more about habits. So these habits can range from like, the time you set to wake up to start work. So like your daily schedule, right? To how, like what your calendaring habits are, like how you schedule things. To the nature of like how you either, let's say, automate some processes that you have to do related to work, right? So whatever those habits are, like as you build up habits, then it makes you great at those tasks, and the efficiency that comes from it helps you accomplish more in less time. So that's on one level. Then there are some things that I cannot do. So for example, if I need some like media content for some work that I'm doing, then I'll contract some folks. If I'm doing presentations, so for example, I've done presentations throughout CUNY, but I haven't done all of them like myself. Sometimes I've had one or two members, team members, come with me to actually conduct those presentations. And then I have like one or two people who help me with bookkeeping, because in running a business, we all know we have to pay taxes. And I can keep the receipts, but my God, like trying to enter everything into one spreadsheet when you have like, you have to keep track of the money that comes in and all the money that goes out. Like trying to do that by yourself is not the best use of your time. So also back to messaging that I said on Wednesday with my career community, like I want you all, I think we should all focus on our strengths way more than our quote weaknesses. So whatever your resources are, use 80% to make your strengths even stronger. And then whatever your weaknesses are, yeah, maybe you just want to spend a little bit of energy to make sure that your weaknesses don't drag down your strengths, but you get paid for excellence. You don't get paid for average. So it doesn't make sense for anyone to bring a weakness up to average, because that's not going to get you far. Make what you're good at into great, and then you'll have greater prospects, not just for business, but also like how you manage the day-to-day of the business.
Thank you, Chris. And there's so many nuggets that you shared in that, in everything that you share. And after folks share, I'm gonna have a couple of follow-up questions that I would love for other folks to answer as well. We'll have Valeria go.
Yeah, ditto to that. There's so many good things that Chris said. The one thing I would say that, in addition to everything what Chris said, I totally agree, is also surrounding myself with people who have done this before. Because obviously, I don't know what I'm doing. This is the first time I'm having a business, obviously. And even though my family, when we got here, they started a business. They have a body shop in the Bay Area, and they've done it for 10 years. So they're really good small business owners. But the thing is that it's a completely different industry. So I think learning who to ask questions, like learning who, like growing that discernment on who is the best person, who's the most qualified to answer my question, and to always be okay with asking those questions. And so I would ask my dad and my parents, okay, how do you file for an LLC? Like, how do you do this? Who's your accountant? Like all of those things, because they know they've done it for 10 years. But I won't ask them questions about how to find another, like Chris said, how do I subcontract someone who does electrical for me? Like they won't know that, right? And so being able to surround myself with someone who has done it before, so finding a mentor, and I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but just it really took getting myself out of my comfort zone, going to networking events and telling people, I just graduated, I want to start a business, this is what I want to do, I do not know, do you know who will know the answer to this, who could you connect me to? And you'll be surprised how many times people actually want to help, mostly if they've been very successful. And so they're really willing to sit down with you, and if they're really busy, they will refer me to someone who knows the answer. And so it really took asking, and I'm like, well, it was that easy. Finding the answer was the work. It still takes hard work, right? And so that will be the one thing that I would add to that. It's just knowing who to ask questions, knowing who to listen to, because everyone will have opinions, but being able to discern who is the right person, right, the qualified answer, and having that person that is committed to helping you grow in your business and in your personal growth. Because I got to tell you how many times I've gotten not opportunities fall in my lap, because I want to make sure that people don't think this is just luck. I want to make sure that people understand that the more you grow yourself, the more you're willing to put yourself out there, things will show up. Things will show up. The more you prepare, and they were probably there already, those opportunities, but I wasn't able to identify them before. And so I would definitely add growing yourself, personal growth, your confidence, or your assertiveness, learning how to say no, learning how to say yes, all of these things, because it will help you in your business, it will help you in other areas of your life, so that you can keep a clear mind and do what you do best. So I will do that. I will add that as well, Rocio. Yeah, of course, discipline, habits, all of that. But I think like we have to have that anyway, right? It's just like a higher level of excellence now. So yeah, I love that.
Thank you, Valeria. And you definitely added to some of the follow-up questions that I will have for all of you. And there's so many things that you shared that are just common themes in some of the things that I'm hearing from you all. Saba.
I really don't know what else to add. But honestly, like y'all are amazing. I mean, literally, I believe all of that. I guess the thing that I would add is that knowing yourself is a really big key as you pursue your career or your entrepreneurship journey or whatever it is. Because once you know yourself, once you've done enough self-reflection, you will then know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, like Chris said, right? And then you can capitalize on those strengths and then make them be excellent, right? And then know that these are my weaknesses, but I don't need to focus on them as much. I do need to continue to get better, but this is my greatness, this is my weakness, or so-called weakness. But that can only really happen if you give yourself time to reflect And if you give yourself time to understand your own journey and where you were, where you are, and where you're headed. I'm saying that because it's a very deeply personal aspect for me as well, where it seems like life goes on at 120 miles an hour, and there's no time for reflection. There's no time for growth. The only way, like Valeria said, is that you gotta keep growing. You gotta continue to enhance your self-confidence, your networking, being able to say no, asking questions and knowing who to ask. But a lot of that will come about almost naturally once you have a good idea of who you are and what your purpose, mission, and vision for life is. Because I feel like obviously there's a lot of things you could be doing. There's, your passions leading you a certain way, but I would just say young people nowadays, it's really, really important to spend time knowing what you like to do, what you're passionate about, knowing yourself really, I would say is a big one. And then personally, you asked about like accountability and managing your time. I agree with Chris as well, calendaring and once again, that reflection part, right? That's the key. When you are able to reflect on what you've been doing, you'll get a sense of, okay, here's how much time I'm spending on growing my skill sets. Here's how much time I'm spending on networking or asking questions, etc. And that should give you a good idea. I'm, a very data-driven person myself, so that should give you an idea of like, okay, I'm spending way too much time doing X. I need to maybe time is not really something that you control, right? So it's more like energy. I always say it's about energy, because you could have 24 hours in a day, but you could have like 120% energy, or some other days you have like 60%. So managing your energy as well is really, really important. And so that will help you keeping yourself accountable. That will help you being able to manage your time, because time and energy, well, we don't need to go to modern physics and talk about space-time. I don't really ever think about time on its own, right? It's about the connection of space and energy with time. So really recognizing that is going to go a long ways. And I'm acting like I'm a prophet in this and I'm like perfect at this, but I'm actually talking to myself as well right now.
That's beautiful. And thank you all so much for sharing. And I do want to just point out, I know that there's one person in the chat that can't hear. If other folks, if you're able to hear, please let us know. I know that some of you, let us know if you're having issues hearing in the chat, via the chat, so we can look into that. Okay, so we hear that folks are good on audio. Okay, awesome. Thank you, folks, for letting us know. Now, there's something that was a broader theme in the things that you all shared, and that is work ethic. And being able to develop that work ethic to continue to maintain those relationships, continue to build those clients, and continue to enhance your skill sets. Now, one of the things that Chris was touching on was strengths, tapping into your strengths and bringing that into your business and the things that you do. Now, what strengths has your immigration story or your immigration background or your immigration experience given you? And I ask this question because oftentimes we think of our immigration status as something that is holding us back, but sometimes we forget the strengths that our immigration story or journey has given us as a strength. So what strengths has your immigration story or experience given you to either get into the tech field, which is something that is very challenging, very competitive, and especially for people of color and women. So if you can share, what strengths has your immigration status given you, either in the tech world, science and technology, or within entrepreneurship itself? And whoever's ready to share can share.
I can share, Rocio. I think it's the best thing that could have happened to me, to be honest, because I always knew I wanted to have a business. I just didn't really. I don't think if it wasn't because I had to make an income, I don't think I would have pressed on to start it right away. And so what has my immigration status helped me with my strengths? I think that resilience that and it starts in school, in physics class, in math class. Those classes were really hard. They were really hard, and I don't think they were especially hard for me because I'm a woman. No, I think they were hard. Period. I will see my guy classmates also crying next to me. So we were all struggling through these classes, but because I know that I had gone through some really terrible stuff, or just difficult, I would say, difficult stuff, and I survived, then I could survive this calculus problem, and these guys are struggling with me. And so it really helped me put things into perspective. I couldn't pay for school because I didn't qualify for financial aid. Well, then I put it in perspective again. Well, other people have done it before. I've gone through some really challenging stuff, and I can figure it out. And again, we figure it out. I think that's what it really has brought me. And I know this is an answer a lot of people will say about immigration, that resilience will come through, but it really has in my field. And I tend to get this answer that people, oh, you must be so smart because you're an engineer. I think I'm very resilient because I've seen smart people, they get the answers like this. I did not. I had to study hard. I had to do the problem 3-4 times. I think that's it. That persistence and that drive that I'm going to figure it out because my parents didn't come here just so that I could quit school, just because this problem was too hard. So anyway, I think that's what I will share. That resilience, that it's very, very important in entrepreneurship as well, because not everyone will give you the job just because you ask for it, right? Not everyone will give you the rate that you want, because that's just business. And so I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Valeria.
Go ahead, Saba.
Oh, okay, you want me to? Okay, I can go, I guess. Yeah, that's a really, really good question. The first thing that popped up in my head was perseverance. And that goes very much hand in hand with what Valeria just already said, actually. And I believe it really is about, I also am like, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I just don't want to give up. I don't give up. I like try to not give up at all. And I think that's also like a little bit of stubbornness and maybe hard-headedness or whatever, and being very, very like assertive and knowing my place. Like if I know something, or if I have a connection to something, I will stand up for it. And just having that self-confidence of like, if you see something wrong, you fix it or you speak up. And also if things aren't going your way or the way that you would like, the not taking no for an answer, right? We've all been told no so many times. You can't go to college, or you can't really get the scholarships or state aid or financial aid or whatever. No is like part of our journey all the way through. And so I just don't take it. Like, I'm not going to take it. I will find a way around, because what that requires is being creative. And I don't think I'm that creative at all, actually. I mean, like, I'm very like perhaps left-brained, very analytical, like I got to have a process. But then, I play music and stuff. So there's some of that. So I think just knowing that there's a way out, and you have to be creative in figuring out the solutions. So, you can't work, no work permit, or for a period of time, my work permit expired during my DACA times, and my renewal didn't come in for months. I lost my TA-ship. I lost every penny I owned. And now I'm actually saying this on record, and I hope my parents don't see this. But, it was just like feeling like I was at the very bottom. But then there was just no way I was going to take this no. And I eventually got out of that dilemma. And I can share later how, but yeah, I would just say being perseverant, like perseverance is key. Resilience, of course, like Valeria said, and being creative about how you can go about pursuing your goals and dreams in the face of obstacles and being told no.
Thank you, Saba. Folks, don't take no for an answer.
Problem,
Chris,
problem solving, because status has led to so many problems for us, and yet we're still here. We're navigating spaces. We're making impact. So for me, that's the strength that I think status has strengthened. But I think there's a bigger point here that I want to cover regarding strengths. So typically, most people view strengths as like things that they're good at, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should do those things or like those things are good for us. So I want you all to think about strengths a little bit differently. So I'm going to ask you, do your strengths make you feel strong? If your strengths don't make you feel strong, then maybe those aren't the strengths that you use, right? I might be good at a bunch of things, but if they leave me drained, why would I want to do them? Or why would I want those to be the bulk of what I do in terms of career? So for me, the bigger picture here is make sure when you identify your strengths, you identify and prioritize the ones that make you feel strong.
Thank you for adding that, Chris. And it's so tied also to one of the things that Sava mentioned around managing your time and managing your energy. And one of the things that you had shared, Sava, was, and one of the things that I took away that just really relates to what Chris mentions is being aware of your energy. Where are you putting your energy? And is where the place where you're putting your energy giving you energy back, or is it just taking away? So thank you both for sharing that and just allowing us to really see a lot of these connections with some of the things that you've shared. My next question to you all is, most of the folks in our audience might be considering science and technology, and science and technology is moving very fast and it's moving very rapidly. And my question to you all is, how do you stay relevant to the science and technology world? What are you currently doing, or what do you do to stay relevant and to continue to bring value into the sector that's moving and constantly changing? Whoever's ready to share first. Chris?
Yeah, so this one's a bit easier for me because as part of my work with clients, like I teach tech career classes across the nation, right? So I've taught close to 2,000 technologists over the course of several years. So I like develop tech career curriculum. And part of that is I force people to read up on technology. So for example, I have a series of articles from various, reliable like tech periodicals that lays out what's hot in AI or like machine learning. So as an example of this, most folks are still, talking about generative AI, but the folks that I'm training, we're like the next step beyond that. If you're not ready to talk about constitutional AI, then you're not keeping pace with like how quickly the creators within AI and machine learning are really advancing technology. So one is make sure you are keeping up with the reading. And then as I've shared with my career community, and I'm going to share with all the career communities pretty soon, I have a list of tech events across the country. Some are virtual. Most of them are free. And when you go to these events, you meet some of the leaders in technology. You find out like new developments, everything from like cloud to AI to even things that are like less technical. So those two things in terms of reading up on periodicals and so focused on tech, especially like what's hot in tech, and then going to these events. And then as always, when you consume these experiences or like these periodicals, find a way to figure out where you might be able to fit in and contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to go next, Valeria, if you like. Yeah, I would also like the first thing that I think of is learning, constant learning. We are always in a state of constant learning and growth. The moment you realize that, I think that's victory for you, because the moment you say, well, I think I pretty much know what I need to know in my field, I think I'm good. No, that's really not a good sign. I feel like as you get older, and as you pursue more education, you'll only find out that what you know is nothing. And you actually have a lot more to learn and know. So in science and tech, of course, just like in the humanities or social sciences or really any area of study, things are moving really, really rapidly, especially now in the last couple of years. In my area, in computational biology, genomics, biotech, biomedicine, therapies, pharma, drug development, et cetera, it's just moving at an insane pace that I honestly can't keep up with. Part of my job really is to always be learning, growing. I read, scientific journals and articles all the time, just because that's my area, and that's one way to keep track of everything. I'm have subscriptions to, or I'm subscribed to a lot of news and newsletters that inform me on the recent papers coming up in various areas that I'm involved in, computational biology, drug therapy, medicine, science, etc. And then of course in the software and tech world as well, because that's also part of my background. So yeah, it's like whether it's learning a new language, not just like linguistic language, but a computer language, right? Like Python or any other skills that you feel like is the next trend, or is being utilized more, then maybe get into that if that calls to you, and if you feel like there's that gap that you're about to fill, and that you see that needs to be filled. And that's what what Chris was saying, is find out where you fit in there. So yeah, that would be my advice, is like continue to learn, never stop reading and learning. I am not the best at social media, as probably folks can tell. And I back in my freshman year of college, I made a very cognizant decision to stay offline so that I could pursue, as a math major, really, really studying a lot and needed to prepare for exams and such. So I had to like literally be disciplined to put away my social media so that I could focus more. And that really, I think that carried me throughout my educational career and today. There's a lot going on in the world. That doesn't mean that I'm not aware of that. I'm very well aware, for example, about the genocide we're watching happen, and I'm very much part of that advocacy effort for Palestine. So, but I know the role of social media, right? I know that it can really distract me. So I need to keep that to a minimum. And then the positive parts of it, which is like advocacy, which we're all involved with, or getting out information, etc. That I try to keep up with. And I know folks look at like TikTok and such to like learn, like videos to learn. I don't even have TikTok. That's not really my preferred way of learning, getting information, but whatever works for you, however you can imagine, ingesting the information, having it like connect with you and make sense. Just do it. Like I'm a big voracious reader, so I just love to read and consume that way. But just find out what that is for you so that you can be in the know and constantly stay up to date within your area.
Thank you, Saba, for sharing. Valeria?
Yeah, I mean, totally take notes on what they're saying. The one thing I would add as well is that you have a unique opportunity, that you have access to a university. Even if it's not through a community college when you transfer, but even through community colleges, I know there's resources to do research, and these professors will get paid or hopefully get grants to help you get into a field of research that it's innovative, that it's the latest trends. So I will not let that opportunity go if you have access to those, because if they'll probably not teach you the latest, but they'll give you exposure of what it looks like, or what that is, even, or what it's called, so that you can recognize the next time you see it. And when you are in a position of taking extra activities in school to do research for professors, I will totally do it. I honestly do not have the time, or I don't really like to sit down through newsletters, subscriptions, and all of this, because I totally feel like they do a great job of summarizing what's the latest. But I think the best way that I have done is to talk to my customers and talk to the people that are at the top, because they know what they need. And to me, to stay relevant, what that means in my business of service is to see what my customers need the most and they're not able to do on their own. And so I see the PhD, one of the co-founders of this company, he's looking into more faster cameras, for example. And so I looked into the research, and it looks like cameras are not fast enough right now to keep up with the machine learning and all the data that they have to go through. And so it's very interesting stuff. So that's how it's still relevant. First, like, take advantage of these educational institutions. Like, these universities are there for a reason, and they do research because they want to advance, and that's how they get money. And also tap into if you are in an entrepreneurship field, talk to your customers. They know what they need. And so I think I'll say that with a caveat. Sometimes they don't know what they want until they know what they can have. I think Steve Jobs said that, but I will talk to your customers. So that's how I stay relevant in my case.
Thank you all so much for sharing. And some of the things that you all shared is a really good transition to one of the questions that we have in the chat. And this question is for Sava, and all of you are able to chime in as well to this question. And the question is, someone in our panelists, someone within our audience has a friend who doesn't have DACA nor TPS, and is a college student and is looking to do contracting work, but is not sure what to pursue exactly. What would you recommend for her to do if you were in her position, given your experience?
Yeah, I tried to type out a little bit while also listening. So maybe what I've written is not as coherent, but basically is like, just be looking out for opportunities, whether it's through LinkedIn, through your network. So if you know folks who are part of tech companies or startups, be like, hey, do you guys need a software engineering or computer science or software help? Like, so it's kind of like we've all talked about, like knowing the niches, like knowing the gaps that you may recognize might exist. So I don't know what your friend's like background necessarily is, like what kind of what stage they are in their degree, and what languages they know, front end, back end. There's so much there, but really like doing the networking part and like figuring out who needs contracting help in the software or computer science world. When I say computer science, like that's a very academic term. So in tech, it's like software. So you would say, let's say somebody needed software engineering help. They are able to hire a contractor for a particular job or project. That's kind of where your in is going to come from. And all you got to do is just say, like, here are the things I'm good at. I can help you. Let's set up a contracting agreement, and then there you go. You can create that opportunity for yourself. It's not super easy, but if you look, there are folks always looking out and searching for folks with a programming background for whatever it is that they're doing. So yeah, hope that helps.
Thank you, Sava. Anything folks would like to add?
So one strategy is to look for opportunities, but it should be in tandem with the other strategy is
Creating
to get people to find you.
Yeah.
So for not just this student, like, what is the student good at? Where's the proof that they're good at a programming language or a framework? There's only two mindsets. And I'm going to revisit the Wednesday career community. There's only two mindsets in like science and technology. You're either a problem solver or a builder. And for both of those mindsets, yeah, hopefully have both, but at the very least have one. And you need proof of them. So if no one knows that you're good at using the tools to build or solve problems, then what's the incentive for someone to like offer you an opportunity. So you can do all the searching that you want, but if no one knows, so either you amplify yourself or you have a robust enough network to amplify it for you, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of your tactics too.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. That's why what I wrote is share your CBN website. And I said website in particular because that is a way for you to really like visually showcase to the world what you do, what you're good at, what things you've done before, and what are you working on. And like having keywords like the search engine optimization keywords like data science and like computational blah blah blah, machine learning, I don't know, just like put down everything that you're good at so that you can showcase yourself. So on your LinkedIn, like this website or this your resume, whatever can be on there, and you would have those. And there's a way to optimize your LinkedIn as well too, right? To show like what your bio and all of that, right? So doing that so people will find you, like Chris said.
Thank you both for sharing. We do have another question for Valeria. And I know, Valeria, that you added some comments in the, you wrote some, you started answering this question, but I do want to read this question out loud. Valeria, I'm finishing up my mechatronics engineering degree and working doing FANUC robotic programming control system. And I have to do contracting when I finish school if I want to feature my career and continue to grow. My question is, when and how did you decide, okay, I'm going to make my own company and look for these contracts and actually follow through in completing them? In other words, how did you gain the confidence to jump from working for someone to working for yourself? Great questions, folks.
Yeah, these are really good questions. So I think I answer too quickly, Carlos. I see that you're already working with FANUC, which is wonderful. Good for you. That's what I was recommending, because I know, so a lot of people that want to get into robotics and mechatronics, I wouldn't start my business right away if you don't have any experience. I mean, you might get lucky, but I think the more you are prepared, the more you have knowledge or some experience, the better you are prepared to get these contracts. And the most important thing is that you want to build those relationships with customers. And so what I would say, what helped me get that confidence was that initial exposure. So I was already working with this customer when I started working with their robots, and they have FANUCs as well. And so what I did is I found the guy that was doing robotics at that company, and I tagged along because I hadn't done anything other than school. And so I asked them all the questions. I took all the courses. They have some courses, I believe, that may be free. I'm not completely sure, but they have a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of forums. So I read it all that I could to figure out how to get it, how to program this, how to do that, and how to integrate it. And I go to every single event that I can, a conference. I asked this company if they will fly me out there. And I'm actually going to go to Michigan in a couple weeks. And so they're willing to invest. And I will say that a lot of companies are willing to invest in your education because you're going to become more valuable. So we'll take advantage of education again. I mean, I know we've said that many times, but the more tools you have in your tool belt, the more you are valuable to anybody, and that will give you the confidence to answer the questions. Now, keep in mind, I don't think you're ever going to be I don't think you need to wait for all of your ducks in a row to start a business. I don't think you need to wait for that. I think you can get started without being formally a business. I will tell you that I started working for them kind of not formally just yet. I started the company formally this year, but I had been working with them for 3 years. And so you can get started now, and I will charge, but you can make it more attractive to them, tell them that you're a student or whatever it is. But I will say get the more experience, the better, so that you understand the system, and then you will see what little needs are in the industry. And so talk to people, ask them what they found. And there's very few people out there that do system integration with FANUCs, but in general with robots, PLCs, HMIs, if you guys want to get into mechatronics, it's not very common, and that people do in small businesses. So it's a good thing, because that means that you will have companies want all of your attention. And so I think that will work for you. So anyway, I would say get prepared, get the most education you can, and talk to others who are doing it already. They can give you a couple insights.
And Valeria, before we move on to the next question, could you, this is the teacher in me, could you quickly for the audience sake, define what these terms are: FANX, HMI, all of that, because it's
Oh
all.
my gosh, yes.
So that way folks who are listening to the recording as well have a little bit of a clue.
Thank you, Saba. Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. So FANUC is a brand. So FANUC. I don't know if you guys can see the question, but I will look them up. They're a Japanese company. They're amazing. I've heard, so those are robots that we use, and I've heard that in Japan, they have the FANUCs building other FANUCs. So it's kind of eerie because they assemble each other and they use them for automotive a lot. So that's the company. And PLC stands for Programmable Logic. Shoot, I forgot what the C is. Control. And so what that is it's a system of sending signals depending on what you want to turn on when. And so I don't deal with that much, but I know it's very common in the automation industry. And so if you want to get into automation, I will look into how to get started with PLCs, how to get educated. HMI is human machine interface. And so what that means is you want to use this machine. Okay, well, how do I turn it on? How do I make it intuitive? And so what is the other thing that I said? Yeah, I think that might be it. But please, if I said something that makes no sense, put it in the chat, because yeah, these are very common terms in the industry, but that doesn't mean that you know them. And so please let me know. Thank you, Saba.
Yeah, no problem.
It's important to know that jargon. I definitely don't know that jargon.
Yeah.
But what I do know is I get this confidence, well, the confidence part of this question often. And this is a rhetorical question for everybody. Who convinced you that you had to be confident for you to take action on anything? That's not a preset requirement, right? So I want you to open up to the possibility that you can build confidence along the way of you figuring things out. So if your quote lack of confidence is stopping you, that is an artificial barrier, because no one said that you can't move forward if you're not confident. As someone, I didn't have any entrepreneurship role models in my family, right? I just, kind of like Valeria, kind of like we got fed up and we're like, hey, we're gonna start our business. And like there's no like confidence to draw from like I've done it before because I haven't, or we haven't, right? But we had this mentality of we'll figure it out. And along the way, yeah, sure, if confidence comes, cool. If it doesn't, it's okay. You can still move forward.
Thank you for touching on that, Chris, and for just really thinking about, like that progress and things happen when there's action. And it's when we really get to see the results and the outcomes down the line. We do have another question for Saba. So Saba, you had mentioned earlier that there was a dilemma that you had overcome, and I believe it was a financial dilemma. How did you go ahead and overcome the dilemma that you had mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I tried to respond to that a little bit, but I'll kind of explain a little more. Yeah, it was, again, it's almost like luck / being at the right place at the right time, something that we all can really, really resonate with. Back in almost 10 years ago, 8-9 years ago, I was, a graduate student, and it was like my beginning of my PhD program or graduate program. And yeah, as I mentioned, my DACA renewal got super delayed. And so since it didn't come on time, I had like 4 months of like no work permit, which meant that I lost my TA-ship on campus as well. And of course I lost everything, and it really sucked. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I just got to get somebody in USCIS to just like look at my case, because just sitting there. And I think this was the first renewal, because DACA burst applications were out in 2013, and so this was like the first time that I was renewing it. So I also didn't really have a lot of experience in that. So basically, it has to do with my immigrant rights advocacy and immigrant youth advocacy work. And I started sharing my story and getting everyone to be comfortable sharing their stories and doing a lot of like immigrant rights advocacy work with organizations like NACASEC or AJC and other ones. And so the White House Initiative on APIs, they knew about me, heard my story, asked me to come talk at a panel at the White House Summit on APIs back in, spring of 2015. And the panel was actually being opened by Leon Rodriguez, the USCIS director. And I was to share my story, and I was along there with two amazing other panelists. And I think either before or after the panel, he was talking about how great DACA was and how it's allowing so many young people to pursue everything, which, we know that DACA left out so many people, and we don't need to go there. So I think before or after, I mentioned to him that, by the way, I don't even have my renewal and I'm super hella poor right now. Like, come on. And he was like, oh shit. He was, oh my God. Yeah. And I think, Chris, is that kind of where we met through our friend Maria. Anyway, so yeah, he was really embarrassed to hear that. And basically, I got back to he had me give my information to his staffers, and then I got back to Texas, and within a couple of days I got my renewal, because I just happened to be at the right place at the right time and happened to talk directly with the head of USCIS, and I recognized right then that I had the privilege of being there, right? My journey had taken me there, which means that so many of my friends who either didn't have DACA or had it, but also went through so many of these issues, wouldn't have a way to voice their concerns and fight for themselves at this stage that I found myself in somehow. So that's always been a remarkable sort of incident in my life where I keep that in mind, keeps me grounded, because even though I adjusted status, it's still a big passion of mine to continue giving back and helping other young people pursue their dreams. And, of course, working with Immigrants Rising, TheDream.Us on all of this. So it just keeps me going. So that's kind of how I got out of it. I didn't really get out of it, but life got me out of it, I guess.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Sava. And it just really speaks to being at the right place at the right time and taking advantage of certain opportunities that might put you in a situation where you can share your story, and it kind of contradicts a lot of the things and I can speak for myself, that my parents shared, which was never share your immigration status with anyone. And the other side of the coin of knowing when to share your story, which can open up doors that you maybe never imagined. Thank you all so much for sharing. Now, there is a question that I do have for our audience members, and we have been closing the sessions with a one-word takeaway. And we want to hear a little bit more about what are some of the things that you as an audience member have been taken away from our panel session today. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which will give you access to a Menti QR code. And you can either go to menti.com and add the code 31699238, or you can scan the QR code. And we would love for you to share what is one word that you take away from today's panel session. And if you can add that in the Menti, that'll be great. One of the things that I do want to share with our general audience and with everyone who joined us is there are so many ways to be able to connect with our panelists and to continue to build this network that these folks were able to speak to and were able to talk about. And as you can see, they have a lot of expertise and knowledge in many of the different topic areas that you can utilize them as a resource. And there are a couple of things that I personally took away from the session today. And one of them has been really the power of storytelling and being able to open up the doors to new opportunities. And knowing that you never know who knows who. And I heard from our panelists being able to connect, share their skills, build relationships to people who have opened up opportunities, who have answered questions, knowing that you don't have to know it all. And that really, you never know who knows who. And you might be sharing your skills, you might be sharing your story with someone who knows the next person who could give you an opportunity. And that's something really beautiful. Now, one of the things and the final question that I have for our panelists is, what gift has your business given you?
I guess you just want us to say it in one word, Lucio, or
You can elaborate.
I guess like I didn't even have to think, but like I guess the first thing that just literally popped in my head was hope. I would say that you know there's so many down moments and up moments, and you know our journeys are very, very complex, and it seems like every door there are obstacles. But I think just having the hope and having the community around has really allowed me to not give up. I think that is the key, I guess, for me, was hope.
I love Saba's answer because that got me thinking that I realized this was easier than I thought it would be. And I know it a little bit contradicts with my answer earlier because I was saying you have to be educated, you have to be ready, but you don't have to be that ready. You know, I think I could have started this way earlier because it's not that difficult once you follow the instructions, and people make it sound like this big endeavor. It depends on what you're trying to do, of course, right? But in my case, I could have started this earlier. In fact, I probably could have started this before I did a 4-year degree. There are so many certificates to get into automation and robotics. Mostly FANUC, the company I was talking about, I know they have community colleges that do programs in 2 years, and then you're ready to start working in robots. And so but I wouldn't have known that because I didn't have, I guess, that exposure. And so what I would say is yes, hope. And I wish I had done this sooner. And so I wouldn't wait till it's the right time because it might never come.
It's a few gifts. So one is unforgettable experiences, like all the advocacy in 2016 that I was involved with. There's no way I would have had those opportunities without starting my business. Two, the connections that are related to that. Three, it's a skill. So public speaking, because as an entrepreneur, whether you like it or not, and I'm an introvert, you have to craft that skill for you to have a sustainable business. And then lastly, is like deeply personal. So I grew up in like tiny basements and attics, and I remember still being in college and I had to sleep in the same room as like my family. And now my business like pays me enough where I have like I live in the building of my dreams. Something I could not have ever imagined. So it reminds me of like me as a little kid having to wonder like, why do I have to live this way? And it doesn't feel like I have to worry about that anymore.
Thank you all so much for sharing. And I am leaving inspired and realizing, that as some of you mentioned, it's never really the right time to get started. And the time is and can be now. And I want to thank you all so much for being here, for being part of this incredible panel, and for all of the things that you shared. For those of you who maybe missed some of the previous Meet the Immigrant Entrepreneur sessions, you will be able to access these recordings by the end of next week. And those of you who are part of our career communities and have been accepted to the career communities, we will be seeing you throughout, and you might recognize 2 of our coaches that are part of this panel session. So we look forward to staying connecting with you all. And thank you all so much for being here. And I hope you all have an amazing Friday. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.